All right, so we finished up the last video with the formula for volume. Okay, so the formula for volume is we're going to take the area of the base, that's our capital B, and we're going to times it by the height, and the height is the distance between our two bases. Okay, so that is what we are going to be working on as we look at the next couple of examples. So here we have a right triangular prism. Okay, so we have our formula. Volume equals the area of the base times the height, the distance between the bases. Now, think back to when we were talking surface area and getting comfortable with our shapes. Our bases have to be directly across from each other. So in this case, our bases are going to be the triangles. Okay, because we have one up front and one in the back. Okay, it's a right triangular, or no, it's not a right. It is right triangular prism. Okay, so my advice to you is to take the base and redraw it somewhere else. Okay, it doesn't have to be exact, okay, but draw it, and then you can just focus on this, because remember, we need the area of the base, okay? So if I look here, this whole distance across is 4. And this distance up and down is a half, okay? So the area of our base, I know we used to use A, but now we're using capital B. I don't know the reason, but we are. And remember, since this is a triangle, the formula is base times height divided by 2. So pull your shape out here and say, what is the area of this? So remember how I told you to find the base and the height, B and H here. You look for the right angle symbol, okay? And it's where they're meeting at 90 degrees. So even if there's not a right angle symbol there, that's what that really means. So basically that's half and 4. So I'm going to say, 4 times a half and then divide that by 2. Okay, well, half of 4 is 2. 2 divided, get ahead of myself, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so the area of our base is 1. We need 2 pieces of information here. We need the area of our base and the height. Well, our height is the distance between the bases. So if our base is this triangle and this triangle, how far apart are they? 6.5. Okay. So now all we do is we take these numbers and we plug them in. That's why it's helpful to write the figure, whatever the base is, off to the side, because then you can figure out its area and then go forward and plug things in. Area of the base we figured out is 1. Our height is 6.5. That's the distance between the bases. 1 times 6.5 is 6.5. Okay, again, this is not the part where I, try to get, really stress out about, but since this is meters, remember we're talking about cubic meters because we're talking about how many cubes fill it. We have 6.5 1 by 1 by 1 cubes. Okay? Don't overthink this stuff. If you can understand what the formula means, find the pieces and then put it together. Speaking of find the pieces and put it together, one more example. A right pentagonal prism is composed, the pentagon is 5 sides, right? But it's composed of a right rectangular prism joined with a right triangular prism. Whew. Here's what we mean. If you look right here, I'm going to use different colors. This pentagonal prism is made up of a triangular prism up top and a rectangular prism on the bottom. Now, for the sake of time, because I know the first video was pretty long, I want you to notice if we're going to find the volume of each of these, we're going to find the volume of each of these parts. Well, the top part, right? This one right here. Notice the right triangular prism. Well, it's the same thing as above. See how it's half and by 4? Guess what we just did up here? Half by 4. Okay, so that's the sake of time. Okay, we're going to say same as above. And so we figured out that its volume was 6.5 cubic meters. All right, so now let's do our rectangular prism. Okay, so remember our formula says area of the base times the height. Okay, here's some good news. We have a really, really easy way for rectangular prisms to figure it out. If you look here, the base is this rectangle, right? Well, what is the area of a rectangle? Or even front, bottom, whatever, okay? Let's say it was the front here, right? It's a rectangle. So the area of the base, what is the area form of a rectangle? Length times width. So this area of the base here is just length times width times height. Finding the volume of a rectangular prism is probably the easiest that you can do. But we can't just, we got to explain that this area of the base comes from length times width because with triangles it's a little different. But the cool thing is if you look right here, length 4, width 6.5, height 6.5. And it really doesn't matter the order because you're multiplying. But it does matter that you type in the right number, so let's make sure we do that. So you're just going to multiply these. I will say, I can put this in as 6.5, right? 6.5 if you want to use a calculator. Okay, so if you grab a calculator and you go 4 times 6.5 times 6.5, you get 169, okay, cubic meters. So our total volume, because that's what the question asks us to do, when you want to do the total, add both pieces together. The volume of our triangular prism is 6.5 cubic meters, and we add that to the volume of our rectangular prism, which is 169 cubic meters, and we get 175.5 cubic meters. Okay, so we don't have a formula for a right pentagonal prism, but we do have them for triangular prisms and nicely rectangular prisms. So it doesn't work for all prisms, but rectangular prisms are just length times width times height.